Good Saturday morning, everyone. It's May morn. Is everybody hungover from all of the debauchery of Walpurgis Nacht last night? I think we just went to bed early. Anyway, it is May 2021. My God. Anyway, I made this myself at work. I worked in a medical device laboratory for a number of years, and I got out, I went into the machine shop and cut this aluminum. It's an aluminum disc, and then I hand scratched Nuit and Hadit and Rahur Kuwait on there, and I put it up on what they call an optical comparator. It's sort of like a microscope with a screen, and I scratched out each one of those paths on that tree of life. This is that's sort of what it looks like there. We'll talk about this a little bit today, but even more tomorrow. In the background there, I think you can see that's an even bigger version. And here is one that a very good friend of mine actually made for me. Anyway. And if you're familiar with Tarot of Ceremonial Magic, you'll know that that is the pattern for all of the discs, the suit of discs. I use my own pentacle for that, but we'll discuss that in a minute. We are on, of course, we're reading Homemade Magic, currently out of print, but soon to be back in print in a new edition with a new publisher. And we are on part 2, The Magical Weapons, chapter 5. Are you comfortable? You got a cup of cocoa? Saturday morning? Are you in your pajamas still? Got some peanut butter and toast? Did you watch Mighty Mouse on TV? Okay. What are the magical weapons really? And this is from Crowley's Holy Books of Thelema, Liber B vel Magi. With the wand createth he. With the cup preserveth he. With the dagger destroyeth he. With the coin redeemeth he. The tarot card, the Magician, represents, among many other things, the alchemical element Mercury, the planetary sphere of Mercury, the Roman god Mercury, the Greek god Hermes, and Thoth, the Egyptian god of magic. The classic image on the card shows the magician holding a wand high above his head with his right hand, while he points downward with his left hand. Before him is an altar or a table upon which rest 4 primary weapons of the magician. A disc representing the element of earth, the material plane, the body, etc. A sword representing the element air, the world of ideas, the mind and the imagination. A cup representing the element of water, the world of the soul intuition, the heart and emotions, etc. A lance or wand representing the element of fire, the world of pure will, the universal life force of the cosmos. Magical weapons don't come ready-made. They have to be homemade or obtained and consecrated in a very personal and special manner. The traditional books of magic go to great lengths detailing precisely how to fashion each of these magical tools. And I've known quite a few magicians over the years who did a pretty good job following these ancient recipes and made absolutely beautiful magical tools. But I'm a pretty lazy guy and not at all handy. So I figure that just doing the best I can is, well, the best I can do. My homemade magical weapons have served me well over the years, and as far as I'm concerned, they contain as much or more magical virtue than if they were actually Parsifal's lance, the Holy Grail, Excalibur, and the plate Jesus used to pass around canapes at the Last Supper. Lazy or not, we all should take the greatest of interest in what our magical weapons are and how we go about bringing them into our lives. These simple objects represent all aspects of consciousness and being. And by that I mean your consciousness and the consciousness of the entire cosmos, organized into 4 broad categories. The Kabbalist identifies each of these 4 groups with a letter of the great name Yod-He-Vav-He, one of the principal names of God found in the Old Testament. Yod-He-Vav-He, commonly pronounced Jehovah. Hebrew is written from left to right, so the great name is correctly written Yod-He-Vav-He. I'm not going to delve deeply into Kabbalistic matters in this book, but I do want you to remember that, according to tradition, these 4 broad categories include the magician's will, Yod, heart, He, mind, Vav, and body, the final He. And that the 4 tools or weapons of the magician represent these aspects of the magician's own being. They are all solid, tangible, and objective articles, objects you can touch, pick up, wave about, even taste. But they represent intangible but very real inward subjective forces, powers, and principles. Things that most people can't even identify, let alone touch with their hands and fingers. According to Kabbalistic tradition, human beings are made in the image of deity. Therefore, the human soul is the miniature or microcosmic reflection of the divine or macrocosmic world. Both the microcosm and the macrocosm are divided into 4 categories. 4 macrocosmic worlds that are reflected in the 4 microcosmic parts of the human soul. The concepts of these magical worlds and parts of the soul are neatly wrapped up into 4 little bundles and turned into actual objects that are the 4 weapons of the magician. Yod, the wand. In the macrocosm, Yod is Godhead itself. In the microcosm, Yod is the essence of the universal life force within each of us. Yod's magical weapon is the wand. No matter what material object you eventually use for your wand, you must have a spiritual connection to it. It must be as magically precious to you as if it had been personally placed in your hand by the Supreme Being itself. Hey, the cup. In the macrocosm, Hay is the archangelic world of titanic fundamental forces of nature. In the microcosm, Hay is the transcendent soul intuition within each of us. Hay's magical weapon is the cup. No matter what material object you may eventually use for your cup, you must have a spiritual connection to it. It must be as magically precious to you as if it had been personally placed in your heart by a loving and breathtakingly beautiful archangel. Vav, the sword. In the macrocosm, Vav is the angelic world of specific mechanical operations of nature. In the microcosm, Vav is our intellectual and reasoning processes. Vav's magical weapon is the sword or dagger. No matter what material object you eventually use for your sword, you must have a spiritual connection to it. It must be as magically precious to you as if it had been personally placed in your hand by a brilliant, beautiful, and fierce angel. Hay, the final hay. The disc, or pantacle. In the macrocosm, the final hay is the material universe itself. Matter and energy is manifested in the space-time dimension we perceive as reality. In the microcosm, the final hay includes our physical bodies. The final hay's magical weapon is the disc or pantacle. No matter what material object you eventually use for your disc, you must have a spiritual connection to it. It must be as magically precious to you as if it had been personally placed in your hand by your own mother and father, idealized, of course, to perfection. Okay. I'm going to start chapter 6, which is specifically the magical disc. I believe we'll probably not have time to read the entire chapter, but we'll give it a start. The little epigram is from Aleister Crowley's Magick, ABA, Book 4, Liber Libriae. The magical disc or pantacle. Learn first, O thou who aspirest to our ancient order, that equilibrium is the basis of the work. If thou thyself hast not a sure foundation, whereon wilt thou stand to direct the forces of nature? I will start with the disc, or pantacle, as it represents the lowest rung on the ladder of consciousness and is the first magical weapon the magician creates in the opening act of his or her magical drama. It represents the magician's perceived understanding of his or her immediate environment, and it is the blueprint of the magician's home. It is position, the place the magician first pretends to be at the beginning of the waking up process. It is the firm foundation upon which we must stand to direct the forces of nature. Just as your magical motto expresses who you are pretending to be, the disc expresses where you are pretending to be and where you are intending to go. The disc is your map. but it is a map you must draw yourself. To start, you have to ask yourself, where do I think I am? I'm sorry to say, but it's impossible for you to know exactly where you are in the universe. Think about it. You're sitting somewhere reading this book. You probably don't even know precisely which way is east. And even if you did know, what is east anyway? You're not exactly standing still. You're clinging to the surface of a sphere that is spinning over 1,000 miles an hour. All the while, you and the whole Earth are being hurled at an unthinkable and variable speed around a star 93 million miles away, which, along with you and me and the whole solar system, is being dragged around some inscrutable center of our galaxy. Add to that the fact that the entire cosmos is expanding at an enormous speed away from an incomprehensible pre-existent singularity. Know where you are? Fat chance. You have absolutely no idea where you are in the universe. Can you really be expected to know where your pretend self is positioned in the cosmos? The answer is a simple no, you can't. But you have to start somewhere. And to do that, we have to first pretend we know where we are. This is why neophytes in the mysteries learn and regularly practice meditations and ceremonies like the rituals of the pentagram and hexagram that require us to presume that we are operating in a set position somewhere in the cosmos. The pentagram rituals oblige us to move about as if we were positioned on the surface of the Earth, an apparently flat Earth, in the center of a circle demarcated by the 4 directions, north, south, east, and west. The pentagram rituals require the magician to become master of the local terrestrial microcosmic environment. The hexagram rituals, on the other hand, work in the bigger world of the macrocosm and force the magician to expand his or her consciousness to encompass a larger universe, literally placing the magician as the sun, surrounded by the belt of the zodiac. Both points of view are, of course, woefully inaccurate. Because you have to start somewhere, you put your pretend self in these pretend locations. I learned these rituals very early in my magical career because I was instructed by my teacher to do so. I really didn't know why I was practicing them. Only years later did it dawn on me what these exercises were doing to my consciousness and my sense of position in the universe. Think about it. When you visit a huge and crowded shopping mall, don't you always feel better when you find your location on the big "You Are Here" map? The tiny arrow points to a position on the map. Of course, you're not actually there on that little arrow, but by mentally projecting yourself there, you become armed with a degree of knowledge and understanding that enables you to find your way around the mall. It also gives you an idea of your position and size in relationship to the individual stores and the immensity of the mall. As the magical weapon of the element of earth, the disc is your body and spiritual food, or bread, that sustains the body. It is the solid, it is the solid foundation upon which you will build your temple. It is also your "You Are Here" map. The disc is also called the pantacle. That's P-A-N-T-A-C-L-E. Because the design that you create and engrave upon its surface will represent in symbolic form all that you presently understand the universe to be. And in Greek, the word all is pan. Obviously, coming up with a design that symbolizes absolutely everything in your universe is a pretty tall order and requires a lot of thought and meditation. You need to do it, however, for unless you are grounded by the disc, you can't begin the great work. The pantacle is your yellow brick road, and you'll never get to the Emerald City to see the Wizard of Oz until you first find your yellow brick road. Okay, that's where we'll stop today. When we continue, we'll start talking about, at least give the example of my pantacle and the method to the madness behind it, how I created it, and clues to how you should create your own pantacle. That's about all for today. Happy May Morn, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow for Sunday school, hopefully. Continue to be good to yourself and be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will.